Welcome to the story of Henry VIII and his six wives, a tale of love, power, ambition, and betrayal that has captivated people for centuries. Imagine a king so desperate for a son that he would break with the Catholic Church, execute those who stood in his way, and marry six different women, each with her own story and fate. Today, we are diving into the lives of these six remarkable women who were forever linked to one of history's most infamous kings. Let's step back in the time and meet the queens who defined an era. 1. Catherine of Aragon, the devoted queen. Our journey begins with Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess with royal blood and strong will. Catherine was born to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel of Spain. Yes, the same royal who funded Columbus' voyage to the New World. She was destined for greatness, marrying Henry's older brother, Prince Arthur, when she was just a teenager. But tragedy struck early. Arthur died, and Catherine found herself a widow in a foreign land. Now, this is where the story takes a twist. Instead of returning to Spain, Catherine stayed in England, and a few years later, she married Arthur's younger brother Henry. When Henry became a king in 1509, Catherine became his queen. She was beloved by the people, known for her intelligence, grace, and strong Catholic faith. But for all her virtues, there was one thing she could not give Henry, a son, a male heir. Catherine did have a daughter, Mary, but Henry wanted a male heir to secure his dynasty. As the years passed and no sons came, Henry grew increasingly restless. He began to believe their marriage was accursed because she had been his brother's widow. But Catherine was steadfast. She insisted their marriage was legitimate and refused to give to Henry's demand for an annulment. In a dramatic turn of events, Henry broke from the Catholic Church, created the Church of England, just so he could divorce Catherine. After 24 years of marriage, Catherine was cast aside, stripped of her title, and sent to live in isolation. She spent her remaining years in quiet dignity, never wavering in her belief that she was Henry's true wife. Catherine died in 1536, but her daughter Mary would later become Queen of England, carrying forward her mother's legacy. 2. Anne Boleyn, the enigmatic queen. Next up is Anne Boleyn, a name that echoes through history as both a tragic and fascinating figure. Anne was everything Catherine was not: young, charismatic, and full of ambition. She had spent time in sophisticated courts of Europe and returned to England with an air of mystery and allure that caught Henry's eye. Unlike other women who had been Henry's mistress and played a different game, she refused to become just another woman in his life and wanted more. She wanted to be queen. And Henry, completely smitten, was willing to do anything to make that happen. The path to their marriage was tumultuous, causing a rift with Pope and leading to England's split from the Catholic Church. Finally, in 1533, Henry and Anne was married, and Anne was crowned queen. But the fairy tale quickly unraveled. Anne gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, who would one day become one of the England's greatest monarchs. But she could not produce a male heir. The pressure was immense. Anne suffered several miscarriages, and Henry's affection began to cool. Whispers of treason, infidelity, and even witchcraft began to circulate around the court. Whether these accusations were true or fabricated, they sealed Anne's fate. In 1536, just 3 years after becoming queen, Anne was arrested, tried, and executed by beheading. Her daughter Elizabeth was declared illegitimate, but would later rise to greatness, proving that Anne's legacy was far from over. 3. Jane Seymour, the gentle queen. Enter Jane Seymour, the third wife and the woman who would finally give Henry the son he so desperately craved. Jane was a stark contrast to Anne, demure, gentle, and more traditional in her role as a woman. Henry noticed Jane while he was still married to Anne, and she quickly became the new object of his affection. Jane did not play games like Anne. She was compliant and eager to please. Henry married Jane just 11 days after Anne's execution. Unlike other previous marriages, this one was quiet and seemed almost peaceful. And then in 1537, Jane achieved what neither Catherine nor Anne could. She gave birth to Prince Edward, and Henry was ecstatic. But joy quickly turned to sorrow. Just days after Edward's birth, Jane fell ill and died from complications. Henry was devastated. Of all his wives, Jane was the one he mourned the most. She was given a queen's funeral, and years later, when Henry himself died, he was buried beside her, the wife he claimed to love the most. 4. Anne of Cleves, the political queen. Now we come to the Anne of Cleves, Henry's fourth wife and perhaps the most misunderstood. Anne was a German princess. Her marriage to Henry was arranged for political reasons. England needed allies in Europe and Anne's Protestant background made her a suitable match. Henry agreed to the marriage based on a portrait he saw of Anne. But when Anne arrived in England, Henry was disappointed. She did not match the image he had in his mind, and he famously referred to her as a Flanders Mare. The marriage, which took place in 1540, was never consummated, and Henry sought an annulment almost immediately. Anne, however, was no fool. She quickly agreed to annulment, realizing it was better to be Henry's sister than his unhappy wife. In exchange, she received a generous settlement, including several estates, and was retreated with respect for the rest of her life. Anne of Cleves outlived Henry and all of his other wives, living in comfort and peace, far from the drama of the court. 5. Catherine Howard, the doomed queen. Catherine Howard, the fifth wife, brings us back to the drama of youth and scandal. Catherine was just a teenager when she caught Henry's eye. She was lively, flirtatious, and everything a young girl should be, but she was also dangerously naive. Catherine was a cousin of Anne Boleyn and had spent her early years in a rather permissive household. Before marrying Henry, she had engaged in a few youthful dalliances, secrets she thought she could keep hidden. But the court was full of intrigue, and nothing stayed secret for long. Henry, who was now much older and ailing, saw Catherine as a breath of fresh air, a return to the vigor of his youth. But soon after their marriage in 1540, rumors began to spread about Catherine's past. When evidence of her previous relationships and possibly an affair during her marriage came to light, Henry was furious. Feeling betrayed, he had her arrested, and like her cousin Anne, Catherine was executed for treason in 1542, at just about 18 or 19 years old. Her short life ended in tragedy, a stark reminder of the dangers of courtly life. 6. Catherine Parr, the wise queen. Finally, we meet the Catherine Parr, the sixth and last wife of Henry VIII. By the time Catherine came into Henry's life, he was a tired and ill man. Catherine was a widow twice over, intelligent and deeply religious. She was also a published author, an unusual accomplishment for a woman of her time. When they married in 1543, Catherine became more of nurse than a wife, tending to Henry's numerous ailments. But she was more than just a caretaker. Catherine played a vital role in reuniting Henry with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, and ensured they were restored to the line of succession. She was a strong supporter of the Protestant Reformations and even engaged in theological debates with Henry. Though this nearly got her in trouble, Catherine was the only wife to outlive Henry. After his death in 1547, she married for a fourth time to Thomas Seymour, the brother of Jane Seymour. Sadly, Catherine's story ended in tragedy as well. She died in childbirth in 1548, but her legacy as the wise and compassionate queen lives on. And so ends our journey through the lives of Henry VIII's six wives, each woman unique, each with her own story and each leaving a mark on history. Henry's wives were queens, but they were also survivors, mothers, and women who lived in one of the most turbulent times in English history. From Catherine of Aragon's steadfast faith to Anne Boleyn's tragic fall, Jane Seymour's gentle legacy, Anne of Cleves' quiet wisdom, Catherine Howard's youthful folly, and Catherine Parr's enduring strength. These women were more than just Henry's wives. They were key players in a drama that changed the course of history. Thank you for joining us on this adventure through time. I hope you liked this video. Please like this video, share with others, and subscribe our channel to get more videos like this. Thanks for watching.